Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dig into something that, on the surface, looks like just another public tender from South Africa's power utility, Eskom. But as you'll see, it's actually a pretty fascinating window into the nuts and bolts of keeping a country's lights on.
It's a huge question, right? And your mind probably jumps to massive new power plants or big sweeping policy changes. But, a lot of the time, the real answer, the actual progress, it's found in the small details. And that's exactly where we're focusing today. We are zooming right in on a critical upgrade at the Matla Power Station. It's just one project, but it tells you so much about the much bigger challenge of modernizing an entire national grid.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at what this upgrade actually is. Then, we'll get into the tech behind it. After that, we'll explore why it's happening now, who's qualified to do the work, and finally, what this all means for South Africa's energy future.
Okay, let's dive right into Section 1 and get down to the what. We're going to look at the specific details of this tender to figure out what Eskom is really trying to do here.
So here are the vital stats. Eskom has put out a call for bids on a 2-year engineering and construction contract. The location is the Matla Power Station out in Mpumalanga. And this is a big deal because Matla is a key baseload plant. Think of it as one of the workhorses of the grid, always on, providing that steady, reliable power.
Okay, so that's the what, but to really get why this matters, we have to understand the how. And that means we need to talk a little bit about technology. You're going to see these 3 terms pop up: slurry plants, PLCs, and SCADA systems. Now I know, they sound super technical, right? But stick with me, because their roles are actually pretty straightforward once you break them down. First up, the slurry plant. So, in a coal power station, after you burn the coal, you've got all this residue left over. The slurry plant is basically the management system for all that waste. It handles the transport, the processing, the whole shebang. It's a critical piece of the operational puzzle.
Next, we have PLCs, which stands for Programmable Logic Controllers. Now, here's a simple way to think about it. If the power station is a giant body, PLCs are its nervous system. They're these tough little industrial computers that send out all the signals to automate specific jobs, like telling a valve to open or a motor to start. They're the ones making the individual parts move.
And if the PLCs are the nervous system, then the SCADA system is the brain. It's the software that sits on top of everything, giving human operators one central screen where they can see what all the different PLCs are doing and tell them what to do. It's the command center. So this whole tender, it's basically a brain and nervous system transplant for the slurry plant.
All right, so we know what they're doing and how they're doing it. But that brings us to the most important question of all. Why? Why is Eskom focusing on this specific system at this particular plant right now? Well, the answer really starts with this number, 15%. What could that possibly mean?
That, right there, is the improvement in Matla's performance, its energy availability factor, in just the past year. That's a huge turnaround. It shows the station is getting more and more reliable, so Eskom is basically saying, okay, this is working, let's double down on this success. This upgrade is all about cementing those gains and keeping that positive momentum going.
So when you boil it all down, the story is pretty simple. The problem is that the current control systems are old, they're outdated, and they're a major failure risk that could erase all that progress. The solution is a full, top-to-bottom modern replacement, design, installation, testing, all of it, with a careful plan to make sure there's as little downtime as possible.
And here's the real kicker. This project isn't just about Matla. You should think of this as a blueprint. It's part of a much wider strategy across the country to rip out old, unreliable control systems at all of Eskom's plants. The goal is fewer failures and a much more stable grid overall. So, this is clearly a critical, high-stakes job, which brings us to the next logical question. Who can actually do this work? What kind of skills and experience is Eskom looking for in a partner?
Well, as you can imagine, the bar is set pretty high. First off, bidders have to prove they have real-world, hands-on experience with these exact systems. No theory allowed. They also need to have properly certified engineers on the team, and of course, they have to know Eskom's safety and quality standards inside and out.
And if you dig into the details, it gets even more specific. They're looking for at least 2 to 3 years of experience doing exactly these kinds of upgrades. But it's not just about the technical work, it's about the planning. Bidders have to show they can develop a rock-solid migration strategy and that they have thorough processes for testing and documenting every single step.
All right, for our final section, let's pull back and look at the big picture one last time. Why should we really care about this one tender for one system at one power station?
Because at the end of the day, this is so much more than just a technical fix. It's a direct investment in reliability. Every single time an old system like this gets modernized, the risk of a surprise breakdown goes down. And that means more stable baseload power, which is the absolute bedrock of a healthy national grid.
And that really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? This one project is a huge and necessary step forward for the Matla Power Station, but it really makes you think, just how many more of these focused, technical, and absolutely essential upgrades are needed to truly secure a nation's energy future?